become sentient. By the time they develop the ability to analyze what the threat of human beings are and whether or not human beings are essential.
Yeah, I'm not saying that having regulatory agency is some panacea or reduces the risk to zero. There's still significant risk, even with a regulatory agency. Nonetheless, I think the good outweighs the bad, and we should have one. It took a while before there was an FAA. There were a lot of plane crashes, a lot of companies cutting corners. It took a while before there's an FDA. What tends to happen is, some company gets desperate, they're on the verge of bankruptcy, and they're like, man, we'll just cut this corner, it'll be fine. And then, somebody dies, some of these like regulatory situations, like look at seatbelts. I mean, now we take seatbelts for granted. Man, the car companies poured seatbelts like there was no tomorrow. They try to...
Really?
Oh, yeah.
They fought them?
For decades. Like 15, 20 years. The data was absolutely clear that you needed seatbelts. Like seatbelts, you really needed seatbelts. Like the difference in fatalities and serious injuries of seatbelt, not seatbelt, is gigantic and obvious. It's not subtle. So, but still, the car companies forged seatbelts for, 10, 20 years. A lot of people died. Now, these days, actually, with advanced airbags, I think we might have.
So with that being said, look what they're doing with cell phones. They're fighting it. And you have Environmental Health Trust with over 252 scientists from 43 nations that signed the international call for protection from non-ionizing radiation. Whole bunch of them. Whole bunch of research. You can even contact them. You can even call for an expert. Joe could have an expert on his show, experts in their field, documenting the harmful impact from radiation from cell phone and cell phone towers. All these doctors here willing to put their name and their reputation on the line. But they're really not putting a whole lot on the line because they won. They won against the FCC based on their safety standards that haven't been updated in 40 years. Still haven't updated it, taken them back to court again. One, you can read the court transcript over here. You can hear the court proceeding on what went down right here.
I'd like to give you an update on our historic legal appeal to the U.S. Federal Communications Commission. We presented our case in oral argument to the U.S. Court of Appeals for the District of Columbia Circuit. The three judges in the case were the Honorable Karen Henderson, Patricia Millett.
Who wrote it?
Who changed the sentence?
Yes, was it you or did you consult external
I changed
experts?
the sentence. I consulted with a number of experts.
Who were they?
And I have
Yes.
to ask my administration if that is an acceptable question.
Emily van Deventer has no specialist knowledge in the field of health. She is an electrical engineer with expertise in electromagnetic fields. She is a member of the IEEE, the Institute of Electrical and Electronics Engineers, which originally set the international standards for public exposure to mobile phones. Emily van Deventer was a lecturer in the Electrical and Computer Engineering Department of the University of Toronto in Canada. Here she carried out research financed by the telecommunications companies Bell Canada and Nortel before joining the WHO. During her public health role, Emily van Deventer remained in close contact with scientists who work for the industry. She co-wrote an article questioning the principle of precaution with some vocal defenders of the interests of electricity companies. In 2006, she joined Michael Repiccioli and Peter Valberg from the product defense consultancy Gradient in signing an article supporting the theory that electromagnetic waves pose no danger to the public.
I shared with you this excerpt from the excellent film Microwave Science and Lies, which you can watch online, because there have been years of scientists and journalists asking the World Health Organization who wrote these fact sheets, which the Federal Communications Commission is actually referring to. I'm going to replay what the FCC Council states about the National Toxicology Program.
The National Toxicology Program, scientists themselves said don't rely on this rat study and extrapolate to humans.
Now, I should add that on the record is extensive documentation documenting how criticisms of the National Toxicology Program are unfounded. Telecom attorney Joe Sandry filed an amicus brief in the case with a statement by Dr. Linda Birnbaum. She's the former director of the National Institutes of Environmental Health Sciences, the former director of the National Toxicology Program. And in her statement, she states that overall, the National Toxicology Program findings demonstrate the potential for radiofrequency radiation, and that's wireless radiation, to cause cancer in humans. Now, she also goes through the findings of the National Toxicology Program. You can read that in the amicus briefs. Please go to our website at ehtrust.org to download the briefs, download the amicus briefs, and read more. Now, what I'd like to point out is that the National Toxicology Program scientists, in all of their communique, have not said that this study doesn't apply to humans, but more specifically, what they've said is you can't directly take the findings and apply it to humans, which makes perfect sense. After all, humans are not rats. However, if something is affecting a rat or causing cancer in a rat, there are implications for human health. That's, after all, why this study was designed. In fact, the Food and Drug Administration asked for the National Toxicology Program to do this study. Now, the question is, why would the Food and Drug Administration ask for the National Toxicology Program to do a study on animals if it wasn't relevant for human health? And they actually state in their nomination of the for the NTP to do this research that they needed to look at animals because, of course, you can't experiment on people, and you wouldn't see rises in cancers and other effects for decades because of how long it takes to develop brain tumors and other cancerous tumors in people. The study also found DNA damage and a type of damage to heart tissue, and this was all at levels that were considered non-thermal. They didn't appreciably increase the heat. Now remember that the FCC is saying that heating is the only harm. Now, the National Toxicology Program study did find that the wireless exposure caused clear evidence of tumors in male rats, and those tumors were the same cell types as are found in case control studies in humans who have used cell phones for more than 10 years. If wireless radiofrequency were a drug, we believe that it would be banned and pulled off the market by now because of all the reported side effects.
Second, we have aggregate limits that apply to fixed facilities. Those are set forth at 1.1307B3, and they require that all
fixed facilities. I'm talking about watches. I'm talking about iPads. Okay, those are not fixed facilities. So
sure.
And then I'm also not talking about just using a phone and holding it up to your ear. People don't use their phones, hardly use them for phone calls anymore. They're constantly in the hand, not 2 centimeters away. They're constantly in the hand, and the fingers are constantly on them. And so I'm just trying to understand how the FDA coming back and talking about cell phones that are in a holster, or nobody keeps them anymore, or are in a purse, or they're not being used. Is it all, and looking only at cancer, is it all relevant to an inquiry, again, into the effect of this radiation frequency from multiple devices that are used in entirely different ways now?
Yeah. So there you go. We're at 10 minutes. I think I'm done. There's plenty over there. Go to the science part, go to health, or actually go to children and infants. Go on children's vulnerability. That's the one you want to look at. You can see the penetration into a child's head.